And we're going to start out with the film It. Now, this trailer, again, came out March 29th, which just so happens to be the 88th day of the year. And it is also Piano Day, World Piano Day. A piano has 88 keys. And they say, when they talk about Piano Day, they say that's why they chose March 29th, because it is the 88th day and it aligns with the 88 keys on the piano. Now, this is interesting because this is the It film 2017 coming out later this year on September 8th, on 9/8. Now, Bill Skarsgård actually plays the creepy clown. He was born on 8/9. 8/9. 9/8. They love this mirroring effect. They love this when they're casting these films and roles. And many of you have asked me, how do they do this? And why are they doing it? Well, it's part of the sorcery, okay? As you guys know, I typically don't cover a lot of horror films. They're few and far between. Usually I stay kind of in the science fiction part of this. Of course, the It film is based off of the novel. This is the novel, okay? And this is where things get just truly bizarre, you guys. This is by Stephen King, obviously, It. And it is about these clowns that show up every 27 years and terrorize these kids, okay? Now, there are 7 kids in the plot of the book. We're looking at the book now. This all starts in 1957, okay? Now, what I want you to understand about 1957, we looked at the frequency of Saturn being 528. Then we looked at the factors of that number, 528 hertz, which is the frequency signal that Saturn is giving off. And we noticed that all other double digits are accounted for except for the 5 and the 7. We have 2, we have 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. We don't have 5, 5. We have 6, 6. We don't have 7, 7, and we have 8, 8. So the fact that these clown deaths in the novel begin in 1957 aligns directly with Saturn. And the fact that these deaths happen every 27 years also aligns with Saturn. Why, Casey? Well, because here's Saturn here. And I searched the page for the number 27, and look, Saturn's got 27 all over it. Surface area 4.27, volume 8.27, mass 1.2530 times 10 to the 27th. And this goes on and on and on as we're looking at the specs of the planet Saturn. There's even a moon that is at a tilted angle from the planet. That's actually a Phoebe ring. It's a ring, and it's tilted at 27 degrees as well. So this is the truth about this film. Now, this is probably expected because it is an occult film. It is a horror film. The point I'm trying to get you guys to understand here is how embedded and ingrained this Saturnalia cult is, even throughout horror. I don't know if Stephen King did this intentionally or it happened subliminally. But here's the plot of the film, and again, every 27 years, this creepy clown comes out. Now, we've been talking a lot about the creepy clown. We've been seeing creepy clown sightings, right? Well, the next thing I'm going to show you is going to blow you away. First, let's do a search on 27. I want to show you this. Okay, so it says, as the story opens, it is awakened approximately 27 years later and is first seen when 3 bullies beat up a couple. Every 27 years, this clown comes out. Now, let's close this window up here. So I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the novel, and I see that this starts in 1957. Let's pull this back here. They have two different time frames. Clown comes out twice in the novel, again, every 27 years. First time frame is 1957, and then in 27 years, I'm going to lay this all out for you guys. In 1984, the clown comes out again. Now, this is going to blow you away. Because if you had 1984 and you had 27 more years, in other words, the next time the creepy clowns will come out and start abducting children, you land 11 on the 87th day of the year, March 28th. And there was a clown accused of kidnapping and molesting a girl facing charges. This is down in Orange County. This was in 2011. They even released the article at 10/31, which is Halloween. And you can't make this up, you guys. Pretty much know that our entire reality, our digital reality, is almost like manufactured. This might not even be a real story, but they had to implant this in our consciousness because this is all part of the sorcery, right? 28th, the eve of when the actual trailer would release, which was yesterday. Now, how long ago was this? So this was 2011. That was 6 years ago. Okay, almost 7 years. Now, this novel is about 7 kids, okay? So there's something about this. It's about 7 kids. Let me pull up these notes here. I got some notes. I'll be in the chat in a minute, you guys. And this is all about, this book and this film is all about these kids and this sewer system and how these clowns come up out of the sewer system. Now, I took some screenshots of this, so I wanted to make sure and show you guys all this. Okay. Because what they show us, let's blow this up. In the trailer, this is a screenshot from the trailer. This takes place in a town called Derry. Okay. They say here people die or disappear 6 times more than the national average in this town of Derry. Does this ring a bell? We were just talking about this in Virginia. Kids disappearing 6 times the national average. Do you remember this conversation we had about, I think it was about a month or 2 ago, long before this trailer came out. And it says, and that's just adults. With children, it's worse. And these are screenshots from the trailer. And then they say much, much worse as this balloon mysteriously goes across the library. I guess they're in the library here. Now, this is a screenshot from the actual trailer, and they've got the kids are in this dark room, and they're basically projecting with this film projector onto the wall a map of the sewer system underneath Derry. And this is where they say these clowns hang out at. And I'm looking at this sewer map that they have pulled up where all the creepy clowns are underneath the city of Derry. And I reversed it, as you can see here. And this looks a lot like Washington, D.C. Now, I tried to overlay this in maps, but as you can see, the resolution is so poor. If anyone wants to get on this and pull up the trailer, find the part where they, showing this map, screenshot it, and compare it to other Washington, D.C. sewer maps, you could have, that could be the holy grail right there. Now, in the trailer, they also show cannibalism. So there's all these things that are directly relating to everything we've been talking about Washington, D.C. and Pizzagate. says quality meats. This door for deliveries only. Ring the bell for admittance. Customers, please use front entrance. And of course, this is a reference to cannibalism. They've got all the missing children here in this meat house. And this is just unbelievable. Is there anything here? I didn't see that. What's that? Like a murder here. This guy's like dead down there. So this is what's going on with this film, you guys. Now, let's pull this back here. I'm thinking this is directly relating to Pizzagate. Now we're going to look at the film Valerian. Now this is unbelievable because, again, this released on the 88th day of the year, and the trailer for this released. Here are all the stars. As you can see, there's a lot of top stars. Rihanna's in this, Ethan Hawke, John Goodman. And so I'm looking at this film and on the trailer, and I notice something very bizarre. And that is this. They show the eye here, and they show the six-pointed star of David inside the eye. Now, for those of you that have been following this channel, you will remember why this is important. We were just talking about this. Actually, last year, 2 years ago, on June 13th, this was the image that we pulled up. This video has gone viral. It's got 136,000 views. And we discovered the secret of the number 369. And we discovered that this Star of David forms the inside of the eye. And then when light comes into your eye, it forms a pyramid or a cone. And then we have the above coming from the other direction. And that the Illuminati seek to basically be heaven on earth. So this becomes their symbol. The cube, this is a hexagon, which is on the North Pole of Saturn, once again, that is within the as above and the so below. What you're looking at is what's called the 3773 cube star matrix. Why? Because there are 37 dots in the center of this cube, the hexagon, and there are 73 dots total with the blue and the pink combined. 37 and 73 are the 12th and 21st prime numbers. So Tesla's 369 and the secret to the universe. This is the video you want to watch. So when I saw this repeated, this was our discovery. This, which is probably why it's gone viral. When we made this discovery and I saw this repeated in the trailer, I couldn't believe my eyes, because this is exactly what we were talking about. Now, the reason why the Illuminati worship this is because this forms the 1,000 points of light. Okay? They want you looking out into the material realm instead of finding the truth within. They actually mentioned in the trailer that there are 1,000 planets. It's the city of 1,000 planets. Again, this is from the trailer Valerian. And as soon as they say this, they show all of these robots basically with all these 1,000 points of light. Just like George Bush Sr. said, the 1,000 points of light to them represent the fallen angels, the fallen stars. It also represents the stars seen through the darkness, which is Molech, which is the spinning stars of the star spin at the equator. At the equator, you see the eyes of Molech. Because heaven is shielded from us. Book of Enoch says we each have a star in heaven that represents our righteousness on this planet. And that's how bright that it shines. The angels and the righteous have a star representing them in heaven. We are not the stars. We have like a beacon. Let's call it a beacon. Okay. God, of course, controls how bright that shines based on our righteousness on this planet. But the true glory of heaven is hidden behind these spinning swords of the book of Genesis, behind the garden, Now, in Valerian, they talk about this being paradise. What they're talking about is the garden. It says right here, paradise. They call it paradise because they know that we're blocked from the Garden of Eden by these spinning swords, which is what it says in the book of Genesis. It says there's two angels spinning swords. This is why we get this optical illusion of the spinning stars. Okay, this is what it is at the equator, and this is quite literally what you will see at the equator. If you were to stay up all night and you could basically condense all of the video looking at the stars in the North Pole Star and the South Pole Star, this is what you would see. And this is why the dark ones worship Molech, because they worship the night. They worship the darkness. Okay. So that's what's going on with that. Let's close this up. Close this up. Now, so I pull up this Valerian film and I'm looking at this and I see this V here. Of course, this is the fifth age, right? V is 5. And I start pulling up some of these folks here that are starring in the film. And here we have Clive Owen, one of the stars of the film. And it says here that he was born on October 3rd, 1964. This is Clive Owen. Now remember, this most recent trailer released on the 88th day of the year. And believe it or not, October 4th in 1964, the leap year, had 88 days remaining in the year. There's your mirror again. Unbelievable. Now, in a normal year, October 4th has 88 days remaining in the year. In other words, this is an opposite date. We call these mirror dates. This is an opposite date of the day that the trailer released on the 88th day of the year. October 4th has 88 days remaining in the year. Those are called mirror dates, and all this is done purposely. Clive Owen plays like the leader in this particular film. He's like the leader. Let's see what they call him in here. 20th century. Let's see your cast. Clive Owen. He's the commander, okay? Which is why they released this on his mirror date, mirror birthday, okay? How old is he? 52. Chris Wu. If you think these birth dates, these casting birth dates don't matter, I'm going to prove it to you that they do. This is why they cast these people. Chris Wu, was born on 11/6, as was Ethan Hawke, the same birthday, November 6th. What's so important about November 6th? Well, it's 11/6, which is 9/11 upside down and backwards, or rotated. He was born in 1970. Chris Wu was born in 1990. They're exactly 20 years apart. That was done on purpose. Okay, as I told you guys, I believe this is the surface of Earth. And we have the pyramids on Earth. Why? Because the pyramids represent, when you pull this down and you pull this up, you pull this apart, you have two pyramids inverted on one another. The as above, so below. And the devil wants to combine the as above and so below, squashing them together. I've been looking for an animation that actually shows the two pyramids squashing into one another, and I have not been able to find one yet. But this is what they want. They want to squish together the above and the below into the cube. And this is their domain, the domain of the fallen ones, okay, here on Earth. Now, when you stretch these apart, you get the vortex. You get a triangle above and you get a triangle below when they're not squeezed together. And that is the vortex. And there's only one way through the narrow gate in the center between the two triangles, and that is through Christ. Okay. Now, the pyramids represent the earthly dominion. That's why they have the pyramids at Giza in Egypt. That's why they're on the planet. You see pyramids everywhere on the planet. They're dotting the planet. There's some in China, pyramids in the Mesoamerica and Egypt. They represent the below, and they're basically their dominion over this planet. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if in these pyramids, we found this hexagonal imagery. And I'm going to do some more research on that because I believe that there are. I do know for a fact that in some of the ancient pyramids in Egypt, they had this honeycomb, which is this exact shape, this cube hexagon shape, in a lot of their ancient artifacts. Okay. And that's probably why, because this is them being God on earth. They want to get rid of this upper pyramid, which is the above, which is God in heaven. They want to get rid of that. And they want to be God here on earth. All of this is imagery. This is it's all symbols. Okay. We saw this pyramid cube artifact in the last installment of Star Trek, the Star Trek films. It looked like a pyramid with a hexagon inside, is the point I'm trying to get to. Here it is here. Boom. Found it. Pyramid with a hexagon inside. That's exactly what we're looking at here. Pyramid with a hexagon inside. Pyramid with a hexagon inside. Okay. They want to be God on earth. That's why they call in the trailer, the Valerian trailer, they call the city of 1,000 planets, they call it paradise because they want paradise here inside the veil. They're going to try to create their own sick paradise, right? City of 1,000 planets. Now, I was watching this bizarre 1933 film a couple days ago. I think it was yesterday, maybe. It was called Deluge, and it was about a wall of water that overswept the West Coast first and then went over into the East Coast. The film starts out with a quote from the Bible, Genesis 9:11. Okay. And then we see New York City, all of the buildings falling into their own footprint, showing basically the foreshadowing of. Now, as you know, in 1933, the Twin Towers had not even been built yet. But the concept for the Twin Towers was actually established in 1933. This is when they began talking about it. So when I saw this 1933 film with the opening showing, so they show New York. Wow, look at the set here. This is shocking. Full-grown people here cruising around. Now, of course, the skyline looked very different, but look at all these people in here in lower Manhattan. And then they even show the Statue of Liberty. Okay. Glad we're talking about this now because I was going to do a separate show on this. And they show all of the whole Manhattan skyline fall into its own footprint. Here's what is this called? This is the Empire State Building, I think. Okay. These are all screenshots from the film Deluge. And you don't see many of the buildings fall to the side. They fall in their own footprint. Now, I didn't finish watching this film. Just because it just got pretty bizarre, even though it's such an old film. Let me find the part where it says Genesis. See if someone screenshotted that. Due to these old films, is a lot of people have already covered this. It's in the very opening of the film. And it says Genesis 9:11, which is the promise that God makes to Noah that he will never again destroy the earth by flood. Okay, see how all that fits in? Genesis 9:11. I don't see any screenshots of that. So let's put Genesis 9:11 in. Village film, Genesis 9:11. Now, here's what they want to have happen. The reason why they're going through YouTube and defunding it is they're trying to force all of the content creators that are exposing them back into the matrix. People cannot do this full time. They want to enjoy doing this full time. If you type in 9/11 news, you'll see that there's many headlines, even up to an hour ago, about 9/11. But when we put the numbers 9/11 in our our titles of our videos, they're immediately defunded. Okay. But if you go here, you'll see, like, for instance, go in here, you'll see ads all over the place, right? This is what they do. So this is a form of censorship, right? That's what they're doing here. I was watching Westworld, and they were talking about fallen stars. And one of the robots looks out into the cityscape, and she sees all the lights, and she says it looks like stars have fallen, and they're basically on the ground. And it reminded me of a time when we were researching the stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Everybody knows what the Hollywood Walk of Fame is, where they put these stars in the ground. And you guys have heard me talk about these stars being cemented into the ground as kind of a big middle finger to God, that we're gods on earth. We're going to be stars down here if we can't be stars in the heaven. And that these stars are really the fallen angels. And that's what the planets are. They're really stars that fell out of the firmament and are basically in orbit around the earth. And this is why all of the planets are named after gods. And this is why nowhere in the creation story does it mention planets, because they're not planets. They're empty stars. And the Book of Enoch calls them wandering stars. So in my decoding of the Westworld series, I discovered that. Now, those videos will be uploading later, but I wanted to show you this because I found something simply unbelievable. Now, what you're going to notice is at Hollywood Boulevard, where the stars are, where it's gold here, is at Hollywood and Vine Street. And we're going to go into Google Earth in a minute here. We're not going to be on long here. We're going to be on here about 15 minutes because I want to get this up and published for you guys. And you're going to notice the orientation is east-west. That's the rising and the setting of the sun. Whereas when you look at the Holy Land, it's orientated north and south. So this is an anti-Christ cross, okay, with the fallen stars surrounding it. Now are you starting to see what we're dealing with here? These things are happening on a supernatural and spiritual level. And when we go into Google Earth, this is actually Hollywood and Vine right here. This is why people ask me, why don't you trust Hollywood? There's got to be. No, this is why. Now, there is a Highland Boulevard, which is down here. Hillcrest. This is all about being on the top of the hill where Christ was crucified. And of course, here you see the cross. Make sure we're still connected up here. Technical difficulties already. And there's Vine Street. I believe what the vine actually means is the thorn, the crown of thorns around his head, which is this cross beam. This street is called Vine Street. Now, there's also a place called Cahuenga, which the word means place of the mountain. So you can imagine that Enter the Stars is going to take a closer look at this. And I got chills because here on the cross, you can see the profile of the crucifixion of Christ. Now, if you're not sitting down, this might be a time to sit down. I'm going to make sure we're still connected up here, because I'm going to show you, this is crazy, you guys. This is just unbelievable. Now, I just found this a few minutes ago, so I want to go live with you guys. Go back here. All right, here you see the feet. Now, it's interesting how they laid these buildings out. Now, of course, this is the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This is Hollywood Boulevard. But you notice they've got the buildings tucked up against the street so that it forms this profile. Now, profile. But for those of you with eyes to see, spiritual eyes to see, you will notice that down here are feet. There's a foot going that way and a foot going that way. Remember, this is a cross. Now, As we move up, this is where things get spooky, because here these buildings have this red tarnish on them, which I believe is the spear that pierced his side. This red roof, and it's only on one side. They don't have it on this side. It makes you wonder, who plans this stuff? Is this city planners that do this? Is this happening on a spiritual, supernatural level? Are we just all crazy? I don't think so. I think all that was hidden is being revealed. Why is the red only on one side? Because that's the side he was pierced on. As we move up, we see what appears to look like the profile of a man. And at the top, at Hollywood and Vine, the famous Hollywood and Vine, I believe this is the crown of thorns. These buildings surround B. Now, this is going to take some deeper research to dig, of course, but I wanted to get this up for you guys so you could understand that this stuff, everything is about God, okay, in this reality. It's all about it. They're not going to tell you. They hide these things in plain sight. And this is true evil, because this is Antichrist. There's nothing good about this. There's your crown of thorns. Look at this. Let's zoom in on the pierced side. Let's see what this building is. Let's fish around in here. Ink. Oh, this is a church. Church of Scientology. There you go. Piercing the side of Christ. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. So the Church of Scientology is the red that's piercing the side of the figure on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the cross. And here's the feet. Let's see if these buildings say anything about feet. Scorpion would be down by her feet. Hollywood Las Palmas. Suppers. This is just like food places. Tours and food. Okay, so there's nothing really that relates to feet. I don't want to stretch this, but these do look like feet down here. These buildings, where his feet would be. Hollywood and Phillips and stuff, and L. Ron Hubbard, a life exhibit. And what's this? The Juices Fountain. Okay. They're like the Holy Spirit fountain. I don't know, you guys. Weird stuff. Enter the stars. Faunus, the Green Man. Cernunnos, the Horned God. Lupercalia, the worship of Pan. And Faunus, the Horned God. Lupercalia, February 13th through the 15th. The World Trade Center, February 26th, converted to Julian, February 13th, the first day of Lupercalia. In 1993, the first bombing. Now it all ties together. Liberalia, the pagan roots of St. Patrick's Day, and the green phallus of Faunus. Do you see how all of this ties together? The Green Man is in fact the serpent himself, repackaged and republished to deceive you. Cernunnos, CERN. It was always CERN all along. And this is the horned god, covered in gold, pictured an iPet goat. And this must be CERN. This is CERN in Google Earth. And as you can see, I've overlaid the image of it so that you can see this clearly. See the outline of where CERN exists on the map. And it just so happens that when you connect the outside edge of this circle with Stonehenge, it passes through the vicinity of where they found the pillar with the only known images of Cernunnos. As you can see here, this is Stonehenge. And the last known location. The location where it was actually found. The Pillar of the Boatman on the Ile de la Cite in France. And this is the line that passes just through Paris, France, and back to CERN. The Pillar of the Boatman, depicting the only known image of Cernunnos, was found in the bowels of Notre Dame, in an island on the Seine River, in France, amongst temples, and was then moved. Here we get the only images of this horned god, as depicted here. But we know who the horned god really is. And we know what these rings represent. The rings of CERN. They call these rings hanging from them torques, which kind of sounds like an orc. A stiff-necked ring in metal, made from a single piece or from strands twisted together. The wires of CERN twisted into a giant ring. They identified the person as having a very high rank. They were designed for near permanent wear and would have been difficult to remove. The word torque, to twist, comes from this word, and we know that the Coriolis effect, the torque, the torus, the secret to energy, all comes from this word. And these look like some modern day amulets that people wear for health. The dying Gaul depicts a wounded Gaulish warrior, and Julius Caesar was from the Gauls. Caesar was the grandfather of CERN. It was the first Hadron Collider, right from their website. Now, you know who these people worshipped. Wicca is known to worship Cernunnos, and what we have continued to tell you guys all along is that Satanists run this world. Period. And in the history of mankind, no other project has had more money spent on it. Your tax dollars. I'm going to share this with you. We're going to start this out with a video on fluid dynamics. And then what we discovered was that the fluid dynamics, in other words, the motion of fluid within inside the eye, actually matches what we see in the night sky with the spinning stars. So I wanted to show that to you guys in this video that I found where they're actually doing actual lab work on spinning dynamics. We're going to look at about 3 to 5 minutes of this video here, and I'm going to talk you through what you're actually looking at. Let's get this to play here. Sure we're connected. Okay, so they're looking at vortices, right? Vortice is just a fancy word for like a tornado vortice, basically fluid, how it spins, what causes it to spin. So they've got this tub of water and they're spinning water, and they haven't done it yet, but they put dye in it first, and then they spin the whole tub of water, and then they can see how the dye actually mixes all together in one color. Okay. And they compare that to a hurricane. Then they do another experiment. They use the same dyes, except they rotate the entire tub of water. This is important, and this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about the night sky, how it behaves, because what you're going to see, remember these images, is you're going to see the difference. Now you see the rest of the room is spinning. That's because they're spinning the tub. And something very different happens when you put the dyes in. They don't mix together. Even when they spin the tub within itself, everything stays separated. And I believe this is what is happening with the visual imagery of what is going on in the night sky. Now, as you get this visual and you see that the dye is not all spinning together, I'm going to show you this other video. This is going to blow you away. Now, this is actual stars spinning in the night sky. For those that don't know, you have a very different view of the night sky from different parts of the earth. All of the spinning stars that you're going to see in this video come from the equator. Okay, the equator, and the equator is, I believe, is a much different place than you could imagine. There's something happening at the equator in terms of why and how you perceive the night sky. It's telling us something. God is encoding something in that because it's different than your sky would be at the North Pole, or we'll call it the South Pole, but I don't think it's a pole. They're very different places. Now, let me explain to you what you're looking at. Let's pause this here. This is at the equator, and what you're seeing is the North Pole star, which does not move, and the South Pole star, which does not move. And I believe those are the anchor points to the truth. God knew that people would look in the sky and go, wow, those stars don't move. And I wonder if the rest of the stars are really moving, or is this some type of optical illusion? And that's what I'm getting at here. I believe that the Bible is absolutely correct when it says the stars are fixed in the firmament. And I think everything else we're looking at is fluid dynamics as well as mirroring effects of the actual firmament. And we're seeing motion in the stars where there really is none. Proof are the pole stars that don't appear to move at all. All the stars move around the pole stars. This one's behind here. But at the equator, this is what you're seeing. You're seeing stars going vertically. You're seeing at the North Pole star spinning clockwise, and at the South Pole star spinning counterclockwise. Look at this. This is just fascinating. So this is the night sky, and you can see it looks very fluid. It looks like the fluid dynamic video that we just watched. But yet people aren't admitting that there's a fluid above us. The Bible tells us the waters above and the waters below. Bible tells us about this. Now, this all points back to our eye model, and this is where things get very interesting, because I'm actually going to show you fluid dynamic videos, or actually images. Let's see, here it is, which seem to match both of the videos that I just showed you. They seem to match the fluid dynamics of dye and water, as well as the spinning stars in heaven. Okay, so this is an article. It was done. The eyes have it. Biomechanical models explore disorders of the eye, setting the stage so that you understand basic fluid dynamics, how fluid moves, and how the stars seem to move like the fluid in our eyes. So here are the fluid dynamic videos. Someone took dye. They wanted to see how fluid moves around in the inner eye. This is it. And pull this up here. And what you're seeing is nothing short of fascinating, because what you're seeing is what appears to be these swirls, eddies, currents in pairs, just like we see in the night sky at the equator. Now, what I did is I'm going to superimpose this over the inner eye Earth model. For those of you that are new to the channel, the inner eye Earth model is what we've discovered as being what appears to be the inside anatomical structures of the eye, seem to mimic and give us clues about the true shape of our universe, our planet, exactly how it's all put together. And it's not a stretch, because many of these ancient models that were given of the firmament look like the inner eye. It's just nobody put the two over each other to actually see what's going on. This is someone put all this together. This isn't my work here, of actually what it looks like at the equator. It only looks like this at the equator. As you go further north, the pole star becomes more prominent in the sky. So if you go north, the North Pole star becomes more prominent. You start losing the South Pole star, and then when you finally get to the North Pole, all you see is one big circle. You see this. You see Polaris. When you go to the south, you see the south. Now, this has biblical overtones as well, and we're going to get into that as well. What I wanted to set the stage for you guys and show you that. Here it talks about moving north. The farther you go north, the higher in the sky, you will see the North Celestial Pole and the stars around it, which is what I just showed you there. Close up some of these windows and close this video. All right, let's keep going with this. Now, for those of you that come to my channel, you've seen the inner eye Earth model. And again, this matches models of the firmament that we've already been shown, that people accept. They accept Earth within the firmament. This has been accepted, but for some reason, people can't understand that looks exactly like the Earth model. The eyes of the firmament models we have, let's pull those up so I can do a quick comparison for you guys. Ancient firmament images. A lot of these go back almost 1,000 years. Some of these firmament maps. Here's the most popular one. This is the eye. This is what you're looking at. For some reason, I see flat earthers always use these images. You know, they use these images in their work, but they never show you that this looks exactly like what the inner eye would look like. It's like they don't want to make the connection, even though God created your eye, and he would definitely encode your eye with this knowledge, right? I mean, to me, this is a slam dunk. This is the inside of your eye. Let's go back to the image here. That's what it is. Here's your firmament around the edge here, and here's your Earth Now, what's up for debate is this Earth flat or is it slightly convex lens? To me, that argument really doesn't even need to happen, because the importance of this is that God fashioned our inner anatomy after the truth. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter the exact nature of this. Some people would say this is flat, but then I would argue, well, it could be flat, but also it could be a convex lens. The two are almost synonymous. If you think about it, even a flat Earth has mountains, high, very high mountains, many of which might be higher in the middle than they are on the edges, which would make it a convex lens general shape. So to me, all of the other stuff is semantics. It's arguing, needless arguing, and stuff like that. So what you're going to recognize here is that I basically superimposed this image of the fluid dynamics, the studies that we saw on the actual dynamics of the fluid inside of your eye, how it actually moves. Before we zoom in on this and show you how this works, quick review. There is a inner chromatic aberration in your eye. When the light comes in, you get this haloing effect around images for some people. This also occurs with cheap lenses on glasses, cheap lenses on cameras. They create this chromatic aberration. It's a rainbowing effect. So there's your rainbow. People are like, okay, well, if this is the Earth, where are all the elements that match what's going on here? Well, I just showed you the rainbow. There's also the planets in the solar system. Those become the floaters in your eye, remnants of bits of things floating about inside your eye. Those are called floaters, and those become basically outer space, which basically is just a void. It's not this massive expanse is what we're told. It's a void, and we're at the center of it. And so there's another element that's accounted for. We also have this 23-degree tilt of the Earth. And it's actually not the Earth that's tilted, it's outside the Earth. It's the eye. It's the axis of the eye is actually tilted from your vision going straight forward, from your visual tilt. Your cranial tilt of the eye socket is actually tilted 23 degrees, just like the Earth. That's not an accident either. We also have the moon, which becomes this, there's a part here back in the eye where you get this crescent. Some people have a crescent shape, so that becomes your moon. Also, the pinpoint of light coming through becomes the sun. So you have all these elements accounted for that seem to match the inside of the eye. And there's so much more that we covered in another video. But for the purposes of this video, there's your quick review. And now we can show you the fluid dynamics superimposed onto the Earth. Now this smaller, I'm going to zoom in here. Let's see here. We'll be back. We'll open the chat in a few minutes here. And I'm zooming in. So this is the Earth, of course. I used a flat Earth model, but again, this could be slightly convex lens. This ring you're looking at here, this dark ring, is in fact the equator. So I designated this as the equator. And I put the equator on here because I wanted to show you the star spin. Now I'm going to impose the dynamics of the fluid in your eye. This is where things get interesting, because as you see, the spinning stars at the equator, I'll say that again, the spinning stars at the equator are where they should be. If you're standing on this line looking up, the stars spinning counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere above your head. Same thing on this side of the Earth. This is the fluid motion of the fluid inside of your eye, the vitreous humor, as you're standing atop the lens of the inside of the eye. Now, I'm going to take the Earth view here, and I'm going to basically turn up the opacity on this so you can see this a bit more clearly. So there's your Earth. And there may or may not be a ring that surrounds the Earth. okay, which would be Antarctica. It's an ice wall, right? The shelf that comes off of Antarctica, they even admit, is the deepest part of the ocean. It's not the deepest, it's the largest cliffs. The largest cliffs on the entire world are at the edge of this. They call it like a shelf. You can research this yourself. There's a shelf around Antarctica. That would make sense. This would be the ice wall. Now, let's turn this back down. So now that you have your orientation on what Earth is, we can kind of zoom. You can kind of turn down the opacity here, and you can see exactly what's going on. So what you're looking at here is basically an image of this at the night sky. Now, this is the kind of stuff you can't make up, okay? I'm simply putting puzzle pieces together. Now, some people could argue the pieces, how do you pull such random stuff out of different places? That's not important. What's important is that the puzzle pieces fit. If someone were to give you a box of puzzle pieces and you put it down and you start creating this puzzle and it puts an image together and it all fits together perfectly, and then for that person to deny what the puzzle was just because you found all these random pieces from different puzzle boxes, does that make any sense? Of course it doesn't. But that's what people who look at this information will tend to want to try to, talk you out of this, because they didn't find the puzzle pieces and no one else found the puzzle pieces. So they're in disbelief. Now, if you look as you go towards the North Pole, that's why I have these arrows here, so make sure we're still connected. Good. If you look, you're going to see this arrow moving from the equator. Now, I want you to concentrate on this. This is why I had to close the chat, because I get what happens. It creates a lot of additional questioning and work because people are asking questions when I'm covering things because they're focused on the chat. And the chat basically is a big distraction from what I've learned from the important work we're trying to do here. We'll turn it on. We'll have fun. We'll talk about this in about another 5 minutes. I'll be done with this presentation. But as you move from the equator towards the North Pole, it says that, and we know from visual observation, that the North Pole star seems to move in the sky and become more and more prominent. And pretty soon it takes over the entire sky and you have one big circle of spinning stars. Okay. So people are asking maybe, okay, Casey, the stars don't do that. And they say that, yes, they do. It's called time-lapse photography. Over the course of an entire night, they move like that. You're not going to just look up and see this spinning. You'd have to use time-lapse photography over the course of an entire evening. So I just wanted to clarify that. I want to make this video as simple as possible so people can understand exactly what I'm showing them. And there's no room for debate or error. So as you move from the equator towards the North Pole, then you get this prominent North Pole star. So you'll notice that the direction of the fluid at the equator is as it is in the night sky, okay? You get this counterclockwise here and clockwise here. But as you move north and this one takes over, there's some kind of an optical illusion that's happening between the equator and the North Pole. That's the only way I can chalk this up that fits in with the fluid dynamics that we're looking at here, okay? And so what I believe is as you're moving, this is what you're seeing in the sky. Moving from the equator toward the North Pole, you're seeing your North Pole star here, and through this optical effect, this optical illusion, it moves, and then this becomes your North Pole star above your head at the North Pole. And see how it's exactly positioned where it should be. And I believe that is what's going on. And the reason why this relationship is different than these two is because look at the direction of the fluid. It's all the same direction, okay? Now, we've done other videos where we talk about how this whole thing could be some kind of mirroring effect, okay? This could be a giant disco globe where this whole firmament that's holding the stars is somehow mirroring something, okay? We're seeing like the opposite or reflections of. Then you have this fluid motion and dynamics, which I believe it or not, is the Spirit of God. That's what I think that this is. I think that it when before creation it says the Spirit of God moved above the waters, and I believe this is what it was. This vortex where God is moving, and that is what is causing like the stars to spin. Now we're going to take this one more dimension. Here's another pressured flow direction distribution in the vitreous humor of the eye. Again, this is the same motion. Right here would be where your equator is. Here's your convex lens Earth. Okay, mountains in the middle for the flat earthers. Oceans on the outside. Okay, and so here you have the same motion. You have the stars spinning at the equator, out and around. Here's your North Pole star above. But I'm going to take this another dimension. This will probably tie it all in for you guys. Let's close this off here. Zoom this out. Okay, back to this. So you see how closely this resembles accepted flat Earth firmament models that are ancient. These are ancient images. Let's see here. Let's turn this off. And this is where we tie it all home, because the Bible talks about cherubim at the Garden of Eden. And this is what really tied it all in for me. The Bible says, looked up the word cherubim, and I remembered the verse in the Bible. He drove out man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Now, this is going to blow you away, because I believe this is the tree of life, or was. We're cut off from it. So you see all these tree stumps all over the earth. And I know Mud Fossil is trying to say that there are ligaments to giants, but I think that's a distraction. I think we had it right the first time. They are tree stumps of the garden. There were many trees in the garden. There are many tree stumps all across the earth, these columnar basalt that are all cut off. They seem to be perfectly cut off. That was the angels and the cherubim. They cut all this off. This is the tree of life. This is the narrow gate back to heaven. We can't get there. Here are the tree limbs and branches of the tree. They become the retina of your eye, filled with fruit, by the way, like a tree would be. They're filled with the fruit of the rods and cones, bipolar cells, and ganglion, which very much closely resemble figs, grapes, and pomegranates. The same grapes, figs, and pomegranates that the Israelites found on their scouting trip into Canaan, and they brought it back on a pole, right? They brought the grapes, figs, and pomegranates back on a pole. This is in Numbers chapter 13. Well, this is, I believe, is what they were describing, okay? Now, this goes deeper, because some people believe that these cherubim are the northern lights with their flaming swords. And this would make sense, because at the north, there appears to be a giant flaming sword moving around, spinning, keeping the way to the tree of life. Right here is where it would be. And I think that's a good place to end the presentation.